Well, south side is C1, and everything west of the creek over here.
Which is
is
all new
C1.
annexation, okay.
It's just this strip, and I'm not comfortable with just taking that one chunk in that one block and then leaving the other two hanging out there
As R1.
as R1.
Now, if we divide this the way that Anna's suggesting with, I guess you're looking at an R2 buffer, which is, I think, is probably appropriate. But then when it comes back, where would the R2 on the northern side continue? Going west, or?
That becomes the question. It's all R, it's all residential, so
I don't
you're not
think we'll change
necessarily needing to change from R1 to R2, but it's really residential and commercial abutting each other comes where you have the issue. And putting a spot of C1 right in there. I mean, Anna's got a good point. It's an entire block all by itself because there is an easement for a road, a street to go there to the west. Well, when you look at the land use map, it just looks funny that we've got this little pink spot here and see it green on the north side of the street.
So one other question. If this converts to C1, whether it be half of it, all of it, then it could be converted to STRs.
Yes, because STRs are allowed in C1.
Allowed by right.
And you're not in the historic district.
An R2, if it was a facility, would require a CUP to get more than one. They could do one STR by right with an R2, but with a C1, yes, a facility would be allowed by right.
And since we're going from R1 to a C1, do we have the ability to put an R2 restriction? Excuse me, STR restriction. We don't have that ability. Well, we can make that recommendation to council.
Not just on, if you're just going to talk about the zoning, you can't amend the uses that are allowed as part of your approval.
You change the zoning, you change the uses.
If they come back with a site plan or something, then you may have, I don't know if you could still limit uses, but you would have a little more discretion as far as, how you could mitigate, maybe negative impacts of whatever the use would be. But if you approve zoning, whatever zoning is allowed by right in the CUP is what they're entitled to.
We used to do that stuff before you showed up.
I don't think so.
I won't be here that much longer.
So Jim, if you're worried about that, the thing to do would be just to leave the north house R1.
And now,
Okay, and then it's prohibited.
well, but
STRs.
then we don't end up with a buffer number 1 and number 2. And if that gets divided up as an R2, they don't allow us one by right. But it's the C1 side. That's potential to be a whole little compound.
It would be buffered by an R2 area.
Busy street.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we have to make a motion. So really the only question is with or without staff recommendation, do we do C1 the whole parcel or C1?
C1 or 2, make them come back.
Make the other ones come back. Okay.
I'm not sure we need to make it R2 right. The north.
So just leave the north as
It's
R1.
R1.
But then when we add those others, you're going to be taking some expenses.
Well,
If you try to make it even.
but the development requirements for C1 being developed against R1 are more strict than C1 developed against R2.
That's correct.
So if we want the most development
Restriction.
protection, we need to leave that parcel R1. And if somebody comes back with a development idea to convert it to R2 later, fine. But I don't think we need to convert that to R2 right.
So maybe all the landowners would get together and come back and say, we want to
Leave,
zone it.
Is it actually two parcels or one divided in the middle?
It's, that's fine with you, that's two.
But is it GCAD definition or classification divided like Hannah has in drawings?
So that's the other question, is what are the parcels, is the parcel line parallel to, is the parcel line parallel to Milam Street or parallel to West Live Oak?
Now, if you look at the rest of them around it, there are no parallels. They're all kind of chalk blocks.
right. Well, and if I read staff recommendation correctly,
Now, you see the difference.
you're basically saying the part facing Live Oak, the half of this parcel that faces Live Oak, you're recommending to accept C1 for that. And then the half that faces Walsh, you're recommending that we could leave it R1, or you're recommending possibly move it to R2. And I'm suggesting that we leave the part facing Walsh as R1 because of the development restrictions that then puts on the C1 parcels. So they've got to do more screening and shielding from R1 than they would if it was R2.
The map on page 25 shows that there are two parcels.
Right.
Yeah, but
But they're the opposite
GCAD doesn't
direction.
cut them the same way. They cut
Yeah,
them
they cut them
north-south,
the
and
opposite.
she's recommending the
Right.
zoning go east-west.
Now, does that complicate things for us?
Well, that's my second question is
And we have zoning districts on two different districts on one lot.
two zones on a
Yes,
single lot?
that's what, on the North Milam. And so these have, recently, these examples on North Milam have been divided along that zoning line.
So
And
the
so you're
GCAD
getting residential developed on Pecan
Okay,
and more neighborhood commercial or STR on the Milam Street, North Milam Street facing.
Because I was told at my GCAD meeting about my piece of property that GCAD doesn't look at zoning.
true. All right.
It's-
Okay, so I'm going to pitch a motion. I'm going to see what you guys think. Yeah. I move that we approve Z 2210 land use change from low-density residential to commercial on the southern half of the property located at 528 South Milam that faces onto Live.
Okay.
That's the entirety of my motion.
I have a motion by Polly. Do I have a second?
That's it.
And now we have discussion. So what that motion is saying is it's on the map on page 25, okay, of the two parcels.
No, it's on the map on page 26.
I'm looking at,
Look at 26.
I know,
Yeah,
but I'm
okay,
looking,
no,
I'm looking
You're
at,
right,
I'm looking at the map on page 25.
yes.
Okay,
And what we're saying is,
the southern is
cutting
the,
it.
is the southern half of each parcel,
Of each GCAD
of
parcel,
each GCAD parcel
yes,
would be zoned C1 neighborhood commercial.
yes,
And or change the land use first to
Commercial.
commercial.
right, from low density residential. You've seconded, we've discussed, do you want to rescind your second?
Well, my
No,
motion is
no,
there's-
this is
there's a
discussion.
property line on block 0. I can follow the line with that, and I'll give you 7,500 square foot.
I don't know,
Sands that would go in zigzag.
Say that again.
yeah, I
You
know,
look at lot 0 on the pages here. Look at lot 0.
On page 23.
The line, there is a delineated line. But we may not end up trying to make this parcels. We
Right.
may not end up. Yeah.
right,
put it on one. That would
yeah,
be
because you're basically matching the depth of lot 507
nice.
to the north,
That's pretty skinny.
That's skinny.
Well, that's a lot.
But
507, 75.
do you see what we're saying, Anna? If we drew a line where the southern edge of lot 507 is,
Cross.
and we drew it due east across the two 528 parcels, straight across, is that enough room? Is that enough depth for that to be viable R1 property?
Just looking at an aerial, that looks to be just over 100 feet of depth, north to south for 507.
Yeah, that's tiny. Yeah, but that's for a standard R1.
How wide
Our
is
R1s
28?
are, yeah,
Those would be 75 by 500 square feet.
you'd have to carve them up kind of sideways.
On that, from the base.
That's almost.
Okay. How many R1 lots would you get out of that if we took that southern border to 507 that's just to the west and made that the line between the two zoning? Or
Nobody gives it a lot. C1, I would
it gives you a bigger C1.
worry about parking on that C1 side.
Yeah, gives you more room for parking to put in on the C1 side. Because you're not going to be able to put parking on Live Oak. I mean, it's like, that's a zoo right there.
Change my second.
Okay, you want me to go back and amend my original motion? Okay. All right, let me try another motion.
All right. First motion is then,
The second was rescinded, so it failed for lack of.
okay,
Let's try this again. Okay. I move that we approve request, item 7B1, request Z 2210, land use change from low-density residential to commercial on the property located at 528 South Milam with the amendment that south of the dividing line equal to the southern edge of property 507. Does that make sense? Does everybody understand that? Okay, so we're taking the southern property edge of 507, we're drawing it due east across 528. And anything south of that changes from low-density residential to commercial land use. Got it?
a motion by Polly and a second by Jim. Any discussion on that?
So that's the land use recommendation.
Make
That's got a
First
second.
vote.
make-
First vote, okay.
All right. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, that motion carries. Then we have the zoning change.
Okay, try this again. I recommend we approve action item 7B2, request Z 2210, zoning change from R1 single family residential to C1 neighborhood commercial on property located at 528 South Milam, with the amendment that we draw a line from the southern edge of parcel 507 directly due east, and only the property south of that line is changed to C1 neighborhood commercial.
Second.
Can we add something to that we also add that step? That's on.
I think we can do that as a separate agenda.
Yeah, that's not part of this. Yeah, that's not.
Yeah, we can't do it this meeting anyway.
All right, so we have a motion by Polly, a second by Tom. All right. Any other discussion on that? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion carried. All right. That one will go to city council.
Do we handle our agenda requests at the end of the meeting?
We'll discuss it during the discussion items.
Discussion.
All right, thank y'all. So let's go to public hearing 6C. Request Z 2211, request by H.E. Skip Pribble to consider an amendment to this planned unit development zoning HUD to allow building heights to exceed the maximum height of 38 feet for approximately 24.805 acres of land located at the southeast intersection of Otto Eckhart Road and Mariposa Drive. All right, Mr. Pribble are here? All right. Oh, yes, I'm sorry, thank you.
Second.
We have to get officially there first. Who was the first one? Jim?
Jim. Holly.
Jim and Polly. Any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, now you can go. I'm sorry.
Good evening, and my name is Skip Preble. I'm with Freedom Development. It's a mixed-use project on the south side of town off of the east side of US 87, just basically across from the movie theater. Freedom Parkway comes in immediately off of 87 and goes back into a residential area that is, let's see, what's the easiest way to show it? Where we have one that's the overall plat by chance. I don't remember seeing it in the package. I'm not sure. Probably, that's in the PUD, I think. Okay, I think if you can zoom out a little bit on that and pick the scale up down here for Eden Phase 1. Okay, right there. All right, so this is the movie theater right across the street to the immediate west. Okay, if you point that, so that gives you a little bit of idea where you're at. The Freedom Parkway goes back to dead ends right at the top of there, the north side of it. To the right, that becomes a street called Interlocking, which goes back into residential. So it's a mixed-use project. The intention from the very beginning was to make this for the back portion of it, which is private, quiet, and also has a little bit of topography to it with residential, single-family residential. It's a mix of sizes. And then the front portion of this was always intended to be a mix of commercial on basically the west side of it toward 87. And then to the east of really what is right now the Otto Eckhart right of way was intended to be a mix of higher density residential. And the high density residential right now we're referring to is when this PUD application is phase 5 right there. So if you see right here, this is approximately 25 acres right here in this corner. So there is some plans for the immediately adjacent property to this we've submitted a proposal for the convention center for RFP. That's going to be where phase 4 is basically on that side. So this is the track right across, right down the hill from. When we put together a PUD for regulation on this, we came up with a 38-foot maximum height because essentially we really didn't know what this was going to be 4 years ago. So we segmented our uses to be commercial toward 87, higher density residential, and then single family residential. Very similar to what you guys were just doing a minute ago with commercial, then R2 buffer, and then single family buffer. So it's kind of a similar concept. In this case, my friend Jerry Turner approached us about the idea of doing a 55 plus community in this area. So it's a project that I'm gonna let them describe. He and his architect are here right now. I'm gonna let them talk about the details on it, but fundamentally, the idea was to do a project that would meet a pretty glaring need here, which is some rental housing for 55 plus smaller families, retirees, things like that. And that also would be in fitting with the Freedom community in terms of architectural style, and also making sure that we've got some very nice homes that are being built back in the back. We want to make sure that we built something that was compatible with that. So Jerry's design has been done at my request to fit our architectural guidelines, to do no harm to the surrounding area, and to come up with an idea that didn't use a lot of land. It was dense, but it was not spread out over the place. So I think that what I'm going to do here is let Jerry come up and talk about his solution to that proposal. And if you have any other questions about our part, we'll be happy to talk. Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Jerry Turner. As a former and now recovering former public servant, I want to thank you all for your commitment. I know it's not easy. My company name is T4 Housing Interest Management. We are a vertically integrated real estate development, asset management, and property management company. When we saw this site, we were very excited. We knew it had a lot of potential. And we went before the PRC. Did I get that right? PRC? PRC project. Okay, review committee. I thought I had it right. And if you'll show the previous exhibit, this was our original plan. And if you look at this, you can see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 3-story structures and 2 2-story structures. The PRC was well attended with the exception of our fire marshal. And recognizing that the fire marshal is very important, I met with him privately a few weeks after our meeting and showed him this. And he said, well, it's a great plan. You've got 2 entrances, great circulation, but we've got a problem with building 1. Building 1 can't be served by a ladder truck. I said, huh. He said, well, maybe you could build a rollover curb and we could run our ladder truck between the pool and the green space. And that didn't seem likely, physically or architecturally. He said, you might be able to run a road behind your leasing office between the pond and building 1. That didn't seem feasible, and it would probably not lend itself well to the park. So we spent a lot of time really noodling through what our options would be. We do have 2 2-story structures to the west, and the reason those are 2-story structures is we didn't want to build a 3-story structure that would be visible from 87. If we built 3 stories, the 3rd floor is going to see 87, along with all the great patrons swimming and the events that they have at the hotel next door. So we wanted to keep those low. And so we elected to take the 3 floors in building 1 and set them on top of the new building 1, 3, and 4 in that photo. And this is how it turned out. We realized that we were going to go over the 38-foot limit, spent some time with city staff, and they recommended that the best approach would be to come before you and discuss the options with you. And what we're trying to do here, if you look at the slope slide one more time, is we've got about 43 feet of slope from one corner to the other. And if we keep to the 2-story, 3-story, 4-story limits, then the visibility from the road is pretty much 0. You're not going to see any of the buildings. You're not going to be able to see units or inside anyone's unit, and no one's going to be able to see the road as well. Lends itself to the land. I can tell you from personal experience, we manage a 350 unit apartment complex in San Antonio on 12 acres, and there are 44 buildings. You can't take 5 steps without hitting a building on that property. And that's why we designed this with so few buildings, is we wanted to make sure that we made the most of the site. We had a lot of permeable area, and we kept the focus on, the surrounding nature, quite honestly, which I think is why people that would be 55 and older would want to live there. So if you can go back to slide 55, what we're proposing. And do we have the elevation, the site line slide? That might be helpful to pull up if you can. This is a different slide, but I think if you want to go back to that real quick. Okay. Well, from 57, there we go. This would be looking east. You can see the 2-story structures, the 3-story structures, and the 4-story structures. What we're doing is we're trying to keep the roof lines consistent. If we went in with 3 stories on top of this 2-story structure, it would look very much out of balance. And again, the people on the 3rd floor would be looking into the swimming pool for the hotel next door. Now, if you'd like to go to the sightline slide or exhibit.
You'll have to give me a minute to get to that one. It was on the email, so I'll have to pull that up.
Okay. And while she's finding that, let me explain. We realize it's kind of hard to tell from an aerial what the sight line would look like. So we got the topo map and used the height of someone in a vehicle driving on 87 and set the sight line for what that person would see. Okay, there we go. So you can see the line across the topo map on the top, and you can see the measurements and the elevations in the exhibit below. If you'll drop down. And you can see from the road, all of the structures are out of view. If this were a 3-story structure, you would see it. So even the 3 and 4-story structures are not going to be seen from the road. Now, I'm happy to answer any questions. I've got my architect with me as well, and I'm sure you have a few, so don't be bashful.
All right. Thank you. We're going to see if the public has any comments, and then once we're out of the public hearing, I'm sure we will have questions. Thank you. All right. Is there anyone here who would like to make any comments on this application?
Make a
Chair,
motion.
I did want to mention that we did receive 1 letter in protest.
Okay, that's right. Okay, thank you. All right.
Make a motion, go to public hearing.
I have a motion by Jim, a second by Tom. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, let's go to action item number 7C. Discussion, consideration, and recommendation regarding request Z 2211 by Skip Priegel to consider an amendment to the the PUD to allow building heights to exceed the maximum height of 38 feet for approximately 24.805 acres of land located at the southeast intersection of Otto Eckhart Road and Mariposa Drive. Anna, do you have any comments you'd like?
Yes, so the applicant is seeking to amend an existing PUD to increase the maximum building height from 38 feet to 60 feet or 4 stories. The subject tract is currently zoned PUD. The zoning was established in 2019 to allow construction of a mix of neighborhood commercial and multifamily. The PUD has a distinct areas of development. On the approved plat, this is phase 5 of the 3 streets on the plat. Only Freedom Parkway has been built. The subject tract in question is currently undeveloped. The applicant is seeking to amend the PUD to allow construction of a 4-story multifamily housing development. Land uses surrounding this property include the ETJ property to the southwest, currently used as medical offices, while areas to the south and east are in the ETJ and used as single-family housing, rural residential. The tract to the north is phase 4 of the PUD and is designated for commercial office use. The property to the west is in the ETJ and undeveloped rural residential and agriculture. Staff's recommendation, Fredericksburg has retained its small town feel even as it grows, in part because of the height restrictions in all zoning districts. Height restrictions help create a pedestrian-friendly sense of place and protect the hill country view sheds. Height restrictions have protected the views of downtown from many vantage points, both inside and outside of the city limits. Changing the PUD to allow 4 stories by right would allow any number of structures to be built to 4 stories or 60 feet. Staff is unable to recommend approval of the requested PUD amendment without more information to understand the impact of surrounding properties and potential obstructions of view from off-site.
Thanks, Anna. How did we come up with 38 feet to start off with in this PUD? I don't remember all those little minute details.
That's our typical restriction for
Oh,
R2.
okay. Thanks. Thank you.
So can you pull the map part that you're displaying right there? And can you blow up right around that pond? And I zoom in on the pond. Okay, these topo measurements, are those at the base of the building or is that the roof of the building measurement? That's at the
Existing topo,
that's existing grade where the building would be.
you'll notice where the street light together.
But the measurements, the numbers in the boxes for the building, that's the bridge building.
To the top of the ridge or the middle of the ridge?
We have the top of the ridge by code, we get mean height of the roof, so that we have leg. But we did the extreme to make sure that the low side view is from base.
Can you scroll back to the pond view? Just because I want.
And that is one point of clarification that staff had asked for is currently it's 3 stories or 38 feet. They're requesting 4 stories with 60 feet. So it was a question of why this substantial jump?
Normal for 60 feet, I mean for 4 stories. Is it?
Because of the roof line.
Well, the problem, if I can say something, the problem with this is, if your footprint building fire, same condition, requires higher pitch, higher, longer length pitch. And so it's a give and take in terms of my perspective overall about the architecture, the look, the design, but then also giving it the my church. So, for 60 feet is seeing what but honestly, there's no reason these guys are not making one building. It's kind of a trade-off. When how steep you can make the pitch, still have good luck without spending a fortune. So 4 stories is really complex. Footage, height in the DVD would be. Go. Go on. So,
Along those lines, the limit was set by ladder truck limits, fire department. We want to make sure we didn't get into territory that would be too small for the ladder to serve the building. I think their limit is somewhere around 80 feet. We felt that we would be well under that. So they 60, sorry. The other thing is that we are still in the design phase. We pretty much know what we want. We're still have a little bit of movement in terms of story height. Exactly what Skip was saying.
Yeah, so based on these measurements, the 4-story buildings are 21 feet higher than the 2-story. Even with the slope, even taking advantage of the slope, you're still 21 feet higher than the 2-story building.
So it's 9-foot plates with 11 feet.
Sorry.
It's 9-foot plates with 11 foot to the ridge above that.
Well, right now we're at 11 foot plates. A lot of it depends on the unit. These will not be 8-foot ceiling parsons.
Right.
So, and so we're still working that design and construction techniques and material. We've got engineers that are also engaged in this and have their work. So that's why we're looking for something we know we need to do.
So when you say that you can't see those from 87, at what, is that just at one point at 87? Because a lot of the,
Along that line.
We pick a line.
How- so if you're coming in from Comfort, and I mean, is it,
You won't be able to see it.
and from Fredericksburg coming out, same thing?
Fredericksburg connection might be able to work along the area. Like, there's, we have,
Maybe. Be more of a, so a 3-story you have to, and legally build a 3-story there, that's not what we want.
Right, and then you mentioned changing the PUD would allow them to build anything else that high. Change it. And so then, if they would get the conference center, is that going to be a separate PUD? So that would not, that means anything just within this development or anything else that they do, any of the commercial areas that they want to do later?
In this section, if you'll go to the text of what they're proposing for the PUD, which I will say we did not get a tract change, so I'm not exactly sure what text is changing. I can just, this is what they presented as what they want, but I don't know exactly what's changing because we didn't get a red line. But you'll see it's not, it wasn't put on a site plan, right? Sometimes we approve a PUD and it's to a site plan. So this PUD was written with text. And so right now what they're asking is for a text amendment. So then, so technically, yes, it would be allowed, any
Texas
building to
would
be
apply to the entire,
to this portion, to the multifamily section, this
just
section.
the multifamily
phase
section,
not
commercial, not the.
So like Daniel mentioned, you could make it specific to this development where any changes would only apply to this specific development. And I would like to confirm, the only requested change is for the height restriction. Is that correct? Okay.
And the way it's written, it's for this.
So Yeah, and that's what we wanted to just confirm that we're just looking at this particular development at this time.
So not having driven to the tops of the hills surrounding town and being able to look down on this, I mean, I've done it before, but this was a field when I did it. So I don't have a good visual representation of how much that is jumping out at people's view from the south. So consider the ranches that are up on the hills to the south on 87 and what they're going to be looking at. Sure thing.
Okay, the top of the hill, this is the house, so that ridge actually goes right along. Picked up the old roads. Part of the reason we really didn't want to build it. So everything along all the way goes back to the other side. Everything on the other side on 87 is that's why that was considered to be such an active extension. Built it that form. So it was really a purchase of so everything on the control, everything that you can see on that one. On the line, everything this way. Of the road side. You can see that pretty well. Right. That is really right there. Everything falls. Everything will fall back. So. Does that help any?
A little.
Two photographs kind of viewed in 87. That's part of that. Incline site where that bridge is. And we fall to the east of the bridge. Comfort descends about 40 feet down. Where the forest.
Refresh my memory as to whether we have other 4-story.
Don't believe so.
I didn't think so. We all do 3 stories.
I think the Albert's 5.
And possibly the Chase. I don't know how tall is the
Just
Chase.
clock.
It's just 3.
It's just.
That's the
clock.
clock tower.
Oh, that's the only part that sticks out.
And then it's crow's nest on the end.
And those are, that's a perfect example of why we kept this at 30 feet.
Right.
It's a scale, it's a visual, and that's what we fought all along. And for that reason, I'd like to make a motion that we deny this request.
Motion by Jim, second by Steve. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion carried. Next, we'll go to city council. Whatever. They would have to have a supermajority. Okay.
That's correct.
Next. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Hope you guys can figure out how to make it work. I'm approaching that senior living situation, and that looks like a pretty nice product, but.
Well, I have a great view of 87 for you.
Jim, I have 150 apartments that we can show you in a minute. There's 150 apartments you can see later on tonight.
That's red range.
Does anybody need a break? Or are you all ready to move on?
If you don't mind.
5-minute
About a
break?
5 minutes.
5-minute break.
Okay.
All right, we're gonna take a quick 5-minute break.
Have to stand in line.
And nice 5 of them, of course. That's not your things.
Oh, they're all,
it's
nobody
both
knows who
sides.
we are.
I thought it was on
I
both
thought they were
sides.
double-sided,
I did too.
showing everybody the blank. Nope, yeah, inside out, upside down, backwards, something.
Who are you, sir?
No.
Appreciate it. Let's see. Go back and read. Well, maybe a table, but. That's.
All right, everyone, let's get going.
Holly has returned from the bathroom.
All right, let's go to action item number 7D, everyone. We're going to go to request P 2218 by Mark Cornett with Cornett Engineering to consider a preliminary plat of Allstat Village Subdivision Phase 2 located at 701 East Morse. Mr. Cornett, you're up again. Now you can legally talk about what you.
Yes, sorry, we already talked about all of
Yeah,
this.
well, we sort of got off track. That's okay.
So, again, this is on, East Moore Street. This is a 6-acre development. We'll create 19 lots. Average size, is probably in that 12,000 range. Again, 9,500 to 17,000. It'll be very similar to what Phase 1 is, building. This is the preliminary plat document. Our final plat will look a lot like this. We're dedicating right of way, we're dedicating easements, and we'll have drainage infrastructure and easements servicing the detention pond in Phase 1 to a common outfall area. Mark, could you point out where the detention is? Yes. And this is the lot here.
What's the lot number? You should.
34.
Okay.
And we did that in Phase 1 rather than have an HOA, so there does not have to be an HOA to manage this site. In the Phase 1, we put the detention pond and fit it all within one lot. So that lot owner will be responsible for that detention pond, which is a concrete walled structure.
Mark,
All right.
while you're up here, do you mind touching on Mr. Daniel's drainage concern again
Yes.
about how the pond functions in Phase 1 and how it will be captured in Phase 2?
So through our preliminary design work, we have a detention pond in Phase 1 here. Whoa,
It's not you.
okay.
It moves with you.
But that was good. That was really good. The outfall of the detention pond is about somewhere in this area, and it'll come through. We need to work on some easement work here, but following a drainage easement and a common channel all the way down to, it'll basically bypass. If we could pan over a little bit more or zoom out. There's a hole in the fence somewhere in this location here, and all of that continues on and eventually into the creek. And so our detention pond for this site for Phase 2 will be servicing the streets and the areas here. And the detention pond for Phase 1 will bypass and then come out of that structure.
When you say bypass, what do you mean?
Well, you'd never want to feed a detention pond into another detention pond if possible. So when I say bypass, the outfall from detention pond in Phase 1 will be in an open channel because it's already been detained and release at the common outfall point.
And where is the detention pond for Phase 1 located? Because you pointed to it, but I'm looking at it.
It's labeled this detention pond and drainage easement.
So it's at the corner of College and Lee,
Yes.
and Mr. Daniel's property is
Right there.
right
Right.
there.
Right.
Where's Mr. Daniel's property?
It's probably
607.
607 is his property. Tom, if you look on that screen, See him in the corner, 607?
Yeah.
And that detention pond is kitty corner too. Just,
And our detention pond in phase one is following exactly the drainage from that pasture. These were old fields that were farmed. And there's actually a rise. What is the extension of College Street is actually like an old terrace from one-way plows plowing the pasture, and we're blown sand. And so one half of our current phase one site drains this direction. And so we're actually, and it does not go into his site now. His drainage problem is actually coming from these tracks. They're crossing tracks 522 and 519 are draining directly towards his house, which is lower than the Lee Street right away. And our site currently crosses the fence, and it currently drains through the Journey Church property in this exact manner that we're going into.
and are there any plans to extend College Street east?
Not at this time.
Is there any easement in there for extension?
There is a roadway easement there, so in the future, if it's needed, that could be done.
To Lee Street, is that the extension? That's
Yes,
So Lee, does it go beyond Lee, the easement?
not at this time.
And we don't have an easement going east of Lee.
That's outside the city limits.
Yeah, so, and just to confirm, this tract is currently in the ETJ. So it's
Yes.
going through the voluntary annexation process. After tonight's meeting, it will go before city council for an annexation ordinance, an annexation agreement, and then the land use and zoning as well.
Did you have any comments you want to make, Gary?
No, Mark's pretty much covered it. I know we've talked about it a few times now. So we did include a number of conditions in our recommendation for approval. Those include the standard civil construction plan approval, where we would look at the drainage, the utilities, and we'll also look at the cul-de-sac in phase one that we've talked about to make sure that that could potentially go away. We'll also need an approved addressing plan and lot numbering that we'll work with the county on. It will require approval of the final plat and then payment of parkland dedication fees in the amount of $500 per lot.
And just to point out, right now, I don't believe, we have it on here, but I don't believe those will be East Center Streets. Those, according to staff, will be two different street names.
Oh, yeah, I saw that on.
I just saw that, and
Yeah, and that's at the request of the county 911 addressing.
Yeah, that you don't do a jog of the street like that, confuses them.
the other one thing to point out, I think that is important on this, is there's water that's already serving on Lee Street. And we were able to we're going to reconstruct the sewer line from the Moore Street right away and have a very deep sewer line at the intersection of East Center so it can gravity flow all of these lots. But by the time that it comes over to the dead end intersection there, I think we're only 3 feet deep. So technically, the Mr. Roger Cornwelly tract could probably serve into the sewer line if they pumped it. But their tract is sloping down towards the creek pretty quickly.
They're the track that's east of this one.
Correct.
That goes to the creek.
It's labeled here, Mr. Roger.
Sorry, this print is very small.
It's okay.
Is the church still standing or have you already demoed it?
Still,
No, it's still there.
It's just gonna be demoed.
Yes, sir. We actually evaluated multiple uses and nothing really worked out.
all right, anybody else have any other questions, comments? Anybody ready to make a motion?
We're still in the public hearing.
This is a site
Yeah,
plan.
this is just, we're done with all that.
I'm sorry, it's a plat. It's not even.
That little break made me talk.
It's a plat, so we are not in public hearing, but I still need a motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve P 2218 preliminary plat, Allstott subdivision phase 2 located at 701 East Morse Street with staff recommended conditions.
I'll second Paul's motion.
Motion by Polly, second by Jim. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, sir. All right, let's go to item
How
number.
does that go to city council next?
No, these are plats. They don't go
Plats.
to all the rest of these don't go to city council. All right, item 7E, request P2220 by Mark Sparrow with HK Fredericksburg to consider a final plat of Friendship Oaks Subdivision Phase 4 located on South Creek Street. Mr. Sparrow, are you here? There you are. Hi. Oh, you're
No.
not? Okay. Okay.
Oh, sorry, can you hear me now?
Oh, he sabotaged you. Turned it off. All right. She's bringing up pictures for us.
Yeah.
What
We'll
page?
look at the pictures online because my
Yeah.
printout is really
What page in the packet?
70.
It starts on 74,
Starts on 74.
but it's, yeah, I need to look at it on the pictures. Which one's the best?
Oh, got it, okay.
Yeah. Oh,
Is that the best one there that we got?
is that the actual plat?
Part of this still is the Heather Glen plat, which is not the same as the Lennar plat.
Okay.
So we're looking at the multifamily, right?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. What you see here is phase 4 of the Friendship Oaks subdivision. You may remember, as Mr. Musselman pointed out, this subdivision was annexed in 2018 at the time under the Heather Glen subdivision name. It came back later. The Planning and Zoning Commission approved the preliminary plat for the entire Friendship Oaks subdivision back in January of 2021. The zoning on this tract was R2. Lots have access off of South Creek Street. The utility connections that are shown are currently under construction. Standard easements such as site visibility are provided. Stormwater detention will be addressed as part of the construction plans. It is important to note that as part of the annexation agreement back in 2018, it called for a minimum 1.64 acre private park. The previously approved preliminary plat provides for a 1.69 acre park as part of phase 1. So because they're providing the park, in addition to the small private park, a fee in the amount of $250, which is half of the regular rate, is required per lot prior to recordation of the final plat. Staff does recommend approval with conditions of the approval of civil construction plans as well as the parkland dedication fees paid prior to recordation.
All right.
And so these are R2 zoned lots, 2 R2 zoned lots. Is
Yes,
what we're
ma'am.
looking
So is there anything that shows what that, I thought I saw something that showed the actual plans for the,
at.
The site plan, you'll consider the site plan. under
okay,
those
so
items.
this is
Yes, ma'am.
just,
That would be,
this is just the flash to show them two different.
And this is the R2 area because council had approved an R3 area also. That's
Correct,
south.
this is the R2.
That's the R3 right
yes, sir,
there.
right there. The track further to the south.
Pinkish, peachy.
Blush.
Blush.
Anybody have any questions? Are you ready to make a motion?
No. All right, I'll make the motion. I move we approve 2220 final plat of Phase 4 of Friendship Oaks subdivision located on South Creek Street with staff conditions.
I'll second.
Motion by Polly, a second by Tom. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, thank you.
We got another one right behind it. You might as
Well, no,
stay.
F has been withdrawn,
F.
correct?
Yes, ma'am.
F is
So-
withdrawn.
If it's withdrawn, we don't have to. Okay. So we'll go on to action item number 7G. Request P 2226 by Jeffrey Moore to consider a replat of the German immigration lot number 10 located at 626 South Eagle Street. Dale, are you doing that one? Okay. We're ready. Is that on?
Can you turn it off?
You might have to.
What page is that?
Did you turn it off?
Sabotage.
There we go.
How's that?
That's
Much better. Sorry. Yeah, the mooring's on 1.26 acres. It's got frontage on South Eagle Street. They want to cut it up into, or subdivide it into a 0.36 acre tract 1 and a 9/10 of an acre tract in lot 2. Both lots, again, have frontage on Eagle Street, and access is by virtue of the constructed road on Eagle Street. The Sunset Street to the north is not constructed, and they will enter in again off of Eagle Street. The property was rezoned earlier this year from R1 to R2, and I think a change in density was also granted. I was part of that transaction. That's pretty much it.
Okay. Shelby, you have any other comments?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Dale.
You're welcome.
As he mentioned, the property was rezoned January of this year, actually. And it changed from low-density residential R1 to mixed residential R2. They're requesting a subdivision to result in 2 lots. It is important to note that as part of the roadways for this project, prior to recordation of the plat, South Eagle Street should be improved to city standards. This includes curbing and sidewalk construction. Escrow should be submitted for curb and sidewalk construction along Sunrise Street. All lots currently have access off of South Eagle Street as well as frontage on Sunset Street. Standard easements such as site visibility are provided. The development of the new lot will require water and sewer tap fees paid prior to recordation. And previously, I had sent out an email earlier today with the revised plat as well as the response to comments. Unfortunately, we didn't have them when we were developing the packet, but based on the information that staff reviewed, it looks like everything met the response to comments, everything worked. In addition, parkland dedication of $500 per lot is required. They are aware of the water and sewer tap fees, the South Eagle Street improvements, as well as the Sunrise Street improvements. And staff recommends approval based on those conditions.
So I do have a question. The very last condition that you have in here about Sunrise Street improvements being submitted as escrow, to be used at the time the street is constructed by the city. So you've identified the curbing and the sidewalk. And you said that contributions to paving will not be required at this time. So when will they be required? And will
Those-
they be required?
So Sunrise Street, I would consider a developer-driven street at this time. The approved plans for the McDonald apartment complex include construction of a portion of it. Then when the property to the north of that develops, they will complete a portion of it. And then at that point, the city, the little unshaded section with a 0 in it is basically the city's responsibility. So we looked at this project from a proportionality standpoint and basically feel that the proposed escrow requirements are adequate based on what they're proposing. So basically the city would be responsible for constructing the remaining piece of it.
Okay, so there will not be paving contribution required at all?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so,
They will make this contribution, and then at such time the city determines the road is needed, we will complete it.
okay, because the way this is written, it kind of makes it sound like they won't contribute at escrow now, but they may in the future. Sorry, Daniel, am I being picky? But
No, and that's a good point. I guess we should have probably struck that last bullet point.
yeah,
So
I'm
just
thinking-
confusion.
in the motion, whoever makes the motion, please strike the last.
So Garrett, a question, does the city have all of the right of way for Sunrise, or are you still missing a piece that is immediately west of, I think, Mr. Coert's property? Correct.
I don't recall exactly if that's right of way or if it's a roadway easement. But it's that piece just west of the unshaded area
Yeah, there's
that I'm
a
unsure of. But it is on the city's thoroughfare plan, so as development happens, that will be a requirement for the road to be.
Here's an issue that I'd like to just throw out, since we have another one tonight having to do with Sunrise, is that all the development that's happening in this part of the community between Friendship Lane and, I guess, Highway Street, the traffic is going to be being forced onto Creek Street, and it's either being forced onto Creek Street or it's going to be forced onto Bluebonnet and Columbus to get up to Highway Street so that they can get over to Eagle Street to either come back to Friendship or go on to Main Street. So a question for the development office in this year's budget, is the city considering anything about the extension of Sunrise to Eagle Street?
Not currently, because we're unsure of the timeline for the McDonald apartment complex. Again, they're building a substantial portion of it. When that occurs, based on the traffic or the trip generation on some of these developments, I would anticipate that rising to the top of the list.
Well, my feeling right now is we've got on here in the packet, there is another apartment, or it's a condo project on Sunrise. You've got Botanica that is going to dump traffic not only on Friendship Lane, but also on Sunrise Street. The Botanica traffic has two places to go. It can either go to Creek Street and go north or south, or it can go to Bluebonnet and go north to get onto Highway Street. So I want us to be aware of the increased congestion that is going to occur. The Botanica development's 150 apartments. They got to go someplace. So I think
Garrett, is the trigger basically going to be when McDonald Corporation builds that complex and then they do that extension? That would be the trigger for looking at completing it the rest of the way?
And what if they don't?
Yeah.
What if they don't? Because the word that I have is that they're not going to build right now.
Well, right now, we have a financial agreement with them that they're going to build that out, right? Or they're going to pay for
The
it.
approved construction plans include them constructing
Right.
a portion of that roadway.
I thought that was part of the agreement.
It is.
You know, as with a lot of areas of town, as additional development occurs, we monitor traffic congestion, and the priorities at that point change. I know a few years ago we talked about completing that section of Sunrise, and at that time it was thought that it would be driven by development in the area. So that's occurring. It's not happening very quickly, but as Tom mentioned, there are a few things coming. So.
Okay. Sorry, we digressed.
All right, anybody have any other questions or comments on this one? Are you ready to make a motion?
Well, you need my notes. Hang on.
I'll make that motion. We're gonna strike that last
Right.
line. So it's a P 2226 replat. And we're gonna go with all staff recommendations, but let's just scratch that last line out about contribution to paving being required. Okay with you?
Motion by Jim, do I have a second?
Second.
Oh, second by Steve. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. All right, let's go to action item number 7H. Request P 2228 by Josh Lemons with Searchers Surveying to consider a final plat of Post Oak Village subdivision located at 651 Post Oak Road. Yes, sir. How are you?
Doing good. The mic works, I think, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Yes.
he didn't
All
turn
right.
it off.
You didn't turn it off.
All right, so we've got our final plat here for you, Post Oak Village. These have been paid. A performance agreement has been approved by council. Funds are in place. And the only thing we need now is just to get formal approval.
All right. Garrett?
So he's right. Just going back a little, the history of this project, it was approved, or the preliminary plat was approved by P&Z back in August of 2021. And as Mr. Lemons mentioned, City Council approved a performance agreement relating to the remaining second course of paving that's required for the streets in this subdivision back in May. So this is just, it was a bit of an oversight, the approval of the final plat. So we're here tonight to hopefully obtain your approvals, and then they can record the plat and start selling home sites.
Make a motion to approve the plat.
Second.
Motion by Jim, a second by Tom. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right,
All right,
Go
thank
for
you,
it.
guys.
that was tough. All right, let's go to action item number 7I. Request site plan 2208 by Mark Sparrow with HK Fredericksburg to consider a duplex residential development located on Lot 2 of Friendship Oaks Subdivision Phase 4. You're back.
Yes, ma'am.
Not Mr. Sparrow, but you're back.
Mr. Sparrow. So yes, we are, so we did submit a site plan permit for a duplex community, going to be a nice gated community. And I think we have currently 30 duplexes on the phase 4 of the Friendship Oaks subdivision.
I don't think we have that picture.
No.
I think our picture got split up.
Okay. Oh, this is that curvy piece of land.
Yes, ma'am. So as Brady mentioned, staff's received a site plan application to develop a duplex residential project on Lot 2 of the Phase 4 Friendship Oaks subdivision. The proposed development would include 31 buildings, 29 two-story and 2 one-story, and consist of 60 two-bedroom units and an amenity center. The proposed development has access off of South Creek Street with a 44-foot wide driveway. 58 of the new units will be two-story and the other 2 are single-story, and all units will be equipped with a fire suppression system. Planning and Zoning Commission approved the preliminary plat for the entire Friendship Oaks development, as we mentioned earlier, as well as the zoning change from R1A to R2 and a land use change from low-density residential to medium-density residential was approved for this phase in July of 2021. The site plan is in conformity with the building coverage, impervious cover, height limits, parking, utilities. Detention will be reviewed as part of the civil construction plans. As with the earlier plat that we had discussed, park dedication fees will be based per unit, but are paid at half the rate. Screening is required along the western property line and is provided along both the western and northern property lines. That includes a minimum of a 6-foot wood and/or masonry fence. Landscaping will be provided at a later date, and staff recommends approval based on an approved landscape plan, approval of civil construction plans, park dedication, final plat approval, which they've received, and approval of addressing plan.
So the land directly north is still owned by Dale Kremlin?
Isn't it, is
And-
that commercial?
No,
Did we zone that commercial?
no. There's no commercial on Friendship. I know. There is, the land immediately to the west is owned by Cat Claw. And that is, I think, C 1.5. Okay. So I have a question. All of the, I guess, infrastructure is going in now on the Lennar section. Are they putting any infrastructure in on this?
No, sir, other than the public road that ties into Friendship Oaks. Is the only
Okay.
thing. Yes, correct.
But you will tie into the,
Yes, sir.
okay.
We tie into South Creek Street, even in some of Lennar's drainage into their detention pond as well.
Into their detention
Correct.
pond.
Yes, sir.
So when you said that, so you're talking about that 591, I'm not good at directions.
Yeah.
That's what you said Dale still owns?
Yes, above. He still owns there's a 5-acre strip
On Friendship.
on both sides of the entrance of where Creek Street comes through. He owns it on both, on the eastern side and the western side. And to the best of my understanding, it's still zoned R2 and for sale.
I don't have any questions about this site plan? You ready to make a motion?
Motion to approve the site. All those things. So that is.
For screening.
All recommendations and findings, yeah. Landscape plan, approval of civil construction, park dedication, final plat approval, approval of the rest.
Motion by Jim, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Tom. Any other discussion?
Yes. Okay, so let's talk about I guess the entire development, the parkland dedication and the park. Who's responsible for constructing the park? Is that in the Lennar? So are they constructing the park as part of their building that's going on right now?
Yeah, I believe so. Yes, sir.
Since this development has different developers, but it's all one development, correct?
Yes, sir.
So this.
No, this is HK.
That is correct. Now, we did sell Lennar land out of the subdivision, but we're doing this one ourselves.
Pardon me?
So we are doing the condos ourselves.
Right, okay,
But we are the developer, or we were originally the developer for the entire tract.
right. But then you sold the eastern tract to Lennar.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you will develop the R3 tract as well?
Undecided at this time.
If Tom's finished with discussion.
I'm finished.
All right. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. That's good. Thank you. All right, let's go to action item number 7J. request for site plan 2212 by Chris Gant with Hilltex Ventures to consider a condominium development located on lot
They all
1
left you.
RR of the Deckard Edition on Sunrise Edition.
Everybody just walked
Look at
out when
that.
you walked up.
Yeah, check the microphone that they didn't turn it
Yeah.
off.
It's on.
All on that one issue? Wow. Okay, I'm sorry. Just,
It's an important issue.
oh, I sat all around that one. All right, Mr. Gant, you just go right ahead.
So we are
Ready.
proposing a condominium complex or in a series of fourplexes on Sunrise Street there. And as you can see, it's numbered as far as unit numbers are, each one of those.
Is this Nederland's property? Did he sell it?
Who's?
Was this Tom, Nederland, the guy who owns, Ground Force? Was this his parcel?
Yes, he had proposed a development on this property once a number of years back.
Yeah,
Prefab.
yeah. Okay. I digress.
So we're not manufactured homes, though. I think his proposal was manufactured homes, yeah. We're not manufactured homes. So anyway, we're proposing 38 units here, a series of fourplexes and one duplex.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the plan right there.
So, but,
No.
No.
Actually, staff first reviewed this item on July 22nd, 2021. So therefore, it's been reviewed under the 2018 short-term rental ordinance, as it was submitted prior to the adoption of ordinance number 2022-13, which is the 2022 SDR ordinance. So he could have up to 8, as was allowed in the 2018.
So 8 of these can be. Because he's under the old one. It's not the new one.
38.
38 total.
Yes, sir.
We didn't get a map.
Is there any maps on each one, please?
Yeah, it got,
But we didn't
the
get
printing wasn't very good. Ours did turn.
we didn't sign.
Shelby, you have anything else?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Chris. As he mentioned, the site plan applications for condominiums includes 38 two-bedroom units that will be 2-story, will be equipped with a fire suppression system. He has expressed an interest for 8 short-term rental units that he would be allowed if he were to request them. There is a correction to the site plan that you see in your packet. The height that's shown on the site plan shows 37 feet, and this is an error. The max building height for an R2 zone is 28 feet. He meets the parking requirements as well as access. Utilities are available to serve the site. Detention will be reviewed as part of the civil construction plans. Screening is required along the northern, eastern, and western property line and can be reviewed as part of the landscape plan. It does include a minimum of a 6-foot wood or masonry fence or a hedge-like screen of evergreen plant material. A landscape plan is required. Staff recommends approval based on the landscape plan to include screening, approval of civil construction plans, park dedication fees of $500 per unit, and a condominium plat approval. You will have to come back for the condominium plat. That'll be approved administratively.
So the screening adjacent to the R1 lots to the west. So is it already in the thing that it can be either a hedge or a fence? Can we require it to be a fence?
The ordinance says or.
Okay.
But I think you could make your recommendation.
That'd be a privacy fence. Just because you're going up against R1.
We proposed
And
it.
my hunch is most of those R1s have a privacy fence already, but not all.
Well, they're chain link.
That chain.
But we proposed a new 6-foot wood fence in the drawings. So, and that's what we'll build.
Clarity purposes, it's just.
Originally,
I thought
originally,
this
we've
was on
seen
the
it
other side.
two times.
Yeah.
This is two.
This is like the third
Yeah.
time, at least the third time.
Daniel, were you going to say something?
I was going to clarify that on the site plan, you can make modifications to mitigate any unfavorable
Right.
effects you may think there be on ancillary or adjacent property, including buffers, screening, things like that.
And I would recommend that we make the modification to require a privacy, 6-foot minimum privacy fence down that western side that's adjacent to the R1s. See those R1 properties next to it?
So since this
It's
was a,
R2 behind, to the north of it, I believe, is R2, right?
On Highway 3.
Yeah.
This is all over too.
It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 R1s, but then everything else is R2.
and all those 5 are built out.
Yeah,
All
they're-
those 5 are
They're
built out.
built out, but they're not privacy fenced now.
So, just a point of clarity, even though this was reviewed under the old ordinance, the ordinance changed before it came to us, can we make a recommendation that the STR not be included? There you go.
Uses are not part of your discretion in the site.
He had to
I
try.
mean, this is vested under chapter 245, so if the project starts, even the first application for the first step of that project, as long as that was done before the change, that the developer has an opportunity to work through, even if there's multiple permits or multiple steps in that process, as long as that first step was before the change. That's how this is vested under chapter 245. The shorter answer is no, you can't restrict uses based on a site plan. You can only take reasonable conditions that you think are necessary to prohibit, to mitigate negative impacts or make sure and try to ensure compatibility with the properties that are adjacent.
Oh, any
So-
hot tubs or outdoor fireplaces,
No. Nor karaoke.
just reminded. me
So
of one
to-
more nuisance.
Talk to Jim's comment there. So STRs would be allowed.
Only state.
Okay. STRs would be allowed, butting up against R1 property. So my suggestion would be, in order to mitigate any negative influences that might occur in this condominium project, that we could require that an 8-foot masonry fence separate the R1 from the R2 property.
The R1 from the affected STR R2, that's the whole thing.
He doesn't know what's
I'm just saying that you've got two different uses. One's going to be probably a higher density use than the other. And a masonry fence would protect the existing landowners more so than a wood fence would.
But could we just request it, require that they only be in the buildings, away from the R1? I don't know what this butts up to.
That whole side is on
That whole side of
The whole-
the
whole
other
side.
side.
the other side.
All the way from Sunrise.
It's only the R1, see,
Right.
those 5 lots.
Are
Those
there
the only
patios?
ones that-
Are there patios on the backside?
Well, wait, I guess the question is, Daniel, can we require that?
Talking about requiring the masonry wall?
No, require where those STRs could possibly be.
I don't think so. I mean, you can do like arrangement of buildings, but you can't, I don't think you can designate them as specific uses in each of the buildings. Like, I don't think you can limit building one to, certain use.
Yeah.
So, I guess you'd have to operate on the assumption that any of them could potentially, any unit could potentially be an STR in the.
Therefore, my suggestion, if there be some kind of a barrier fence that would separate this development from the existing R1 properties that have been there since the 70s.
My only thing is then that could economic burden because I could see between the buildings, where the buildings are up against the property line and the adjacent property. But where you've got the parking lot, requiring them to install a masonry wall.
Or an 8 foot, how about an 8 foot
fence.
wooden fence?
An 8-foot wood
Wooden,
privacy fence.
yes.
Yes,
Something that
or
would,
8 feet. But I just
deflect
think
sound.
making them build a masonry wall down that entire side where you've got, can you make that smaller so we can see where, there's a parking lot, there's parking in there somewhere. I'm seeing it on my plat.
no,
No.
No, the
No.
It's
building's,
going the other way. Okay, never mind.
the building's back right up to the property.
buildings back up property.
Pull that away. Mine's oriented the wrong way. So, okay. Okay, then. How about an 8-foot privacy?
8 foot private fence would be good.
Just,
Since they're 2-story,
Right.
especially.
There's only two buildings that are two-story. That's it. Everything else is single-story.
And do they butt up to the Sunset Street properties?
Which
The
ones are
Sunrise,
They're 2 stories.
no, the only two-story, it shows one there and one across from it.
Okay, and they're away from the R1.
Yeah.
Okay,
Up a little
They're
bit
not
higher,
near
you'll
the-
see the
they're
other
not near the R1.
two-story
Oh,
and
yeah,
two-story. You can
yeah.
see them there.
They're not near the R1.
Yeah, they are. One of them is right there.
Yeah, but that's another R2.
But I can flip
Well, it's
that
R1.
if necessary. I can put that two-story with that two-story and that one-story where that is. If you see units 21 and 22 can go where 17, 18, 19, and 20 are. Those two can flip.
Yeah, that would work better if you could flip them.
I'll be glad to do that.
Yeah, flip them so that the lower properties are adjacent to your R1. That would help,
Absolutely.
would help. Okay. So we want to add it. We want the privacy fence to go from 6 feet to 8 feet.
Even swapping those?
Yeah, just because of the noise factor between these and the R1s right next to them.
Okay.
Especially if they have potential BSTRs, they're going to be more noisy.
That's what I'm saying. I'm designating the two stories as STRs.
But we don't know.
Yeah,
that
but we have to consider that you may not own the property long-term and somebody else by right
Right.
can make any one of those buildings and any one of those an STR anywhere on that property.
It's my understanding we have to designate which ones, right? At some point.
To obtain your short-term rental permit, yes, you would
Right.
need to designate the unit, and the unit would be designated by the address. The permit would be tied to that specific unit.
And it doesn't restrict.
Yeah, but in R2, he can move, he can change which unit it is, can't he? Because in R2, they're not,
They're allowed. by
they're
right.
allowed. As long as he doesn't do more than 8, he can switch which 8 it is.
I'll have to defer to Daniel on that.
Because I don't think we put,
I don't know that I can answer that right now. It's
yeah, I'm not sure we put.
overly
restrictions.
complex trend analysis on the non-conforming
Sorry.
uses.
I'm just trying to think of, if he can make any building, any one of those units an STR at any point in the future, we've got to consider.
So
I mean,
hence the 8 foot wooden fence along the western property.
Right. So
That's
we're
fine.
just saying, just go from 6 to
Right.
8 feet.
That's fine.
And then if you swap those two, that'll be even better because you've got 2 stories are away from the
Sure.
R1s. Yeah, so somebody want to make a motion with all that I said? No?
Yes, somebody, please do.
All right. I move we approve SP 2212 with staff recommendations, with the addition of moving the western fence from a 6-foot wood fence to an 8-foot wood fence, and swapping the northwest 2-story height building with the northeast 1-story.
Second.
A motion by Polly, second by Tom. Any discussion on it? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Motion
Okay,
carries.
that made
Thank
sense
you.
to everybody.
That makes sense to you.
Yes. You want me to turn it off now?
Yes, I think we're done.
That would be yes.
All right, let's approve the minutes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion by Jim, and second by Steve. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, let's go to discussion item 8A. Update on P and Z agenda item request.
I will keep this brief, I promise. So what I've passed out to you is the approved by council P and Z agenda item request form. It sounds like we might have a good example after tonight's meeting to utilize. So again, the form either requires the chair approval or a total of 3 commission members to submit. So if you'd like to prepare probably one on the zoning case, go ahead and just send it to me when it's signed off on. And
I'm gonna get it signed off.
okay, perfect. So we'll get that added to the next agenda. Any
So,
questions about that?
yes, question. So the chair can add, just like the mayor can add.
That's correct.
Without any other.
Just the
Just the
chair's
chair.
approval. Or,
The all-powerful chair.
yes, or a total of 3 commission members.
Okey-doke.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
So,
All right.
can I add, raise one thing about the agenda request item? Okay. From I guess, a procedural point. Does this open the door for the Planning and Zoning Commission to initiate policy?
I think that anything that's going to be requested has to go for city attorney approval. It has to be something that
It's within our scope.
our power than what we're supposed to be.
That's correct. Before anything's placed officially on the agenda, the city attorney has to approve it to ensure
Is
it
that
meets
Jim?
all the state requirements.
That's true.
Okay, so you sign it too. I'm sorry.
Because my concern was that the policy-making body of the city of Fredericksburg is the city council under the direction of the city staff. Okay. And so, is this being sent to city staff, to say, make or propose policy to city council? So that's what we're doing, is we are proposing policies. And the question I have is that our purview?
It is our purview to put items on our agenda that are within our scope. And that's, we had all those discussions prior to this, so you kind of missed some of that. So this is to do things like we put on the agenda that we wanted a form for this. Legally, we have the right to do it. We just needed a procedure. Things like discussing the workshops and when we're going to have the workshops. They're not specific public notice items or action items there, but we can add discussion items beyond these two. These things come to the public hearings and the action items come to us. But the other items, the other discussion items and procedural matters are things we can discuss ourselves.
This is also, we intend to be a formalized process, procedure for us to make recommendations and request to staff.
Right. To look at things. And these may be directions on looking at ordinance issues that we're seeing, and we want them to go research it and bring back recommendations.
Those recommendations then the city council.
Correct.
Correct.
No. But they come to us, we make a recommendation, then it goes to city council.
So just a staff request that have agenda item. In the past, our packets have always come with a legend of the impacted properties. That's
Back in the
that
days.
dropped off our package.
It hasn't happened since Brian was here.
My apologies. Compiling the packets this go around were particularly difficult. We were having issues with our software that builds those maps for us. So we had to get creative. So that's why you didn't see them as heavy as you normally do in the previous cycle.
And it's not, it doesn't impact our decision. It gives us all a lot.
Right. And I raised with Shelby that it would be nice to have page numbers in the agenda on the front, the way that city council does.
That's what I did. Put my own on there.
That would be very helpful, so we could turn to the packet. And then any kind of maps that, I know that there were some problems with the large maps that were instituted, but like,
We could ask IT just to get rid of our pictures off the screen.
Yeah, we don't need our
Yeah,
pictures.
honestly, we don't need to look at ourselves.
And I don't think they can do it. When they're pointing up there, it doesn't do us any good.
Well, we can't see. She's moved somebody.
Yeah, somebody, sometimes, yeah. All right, those are good.
Okay.
All right,
Garrett,
no,
you
what,
got
no,
an
no, we're
update?
not done.
We're
There's
not
one more
done.
thing. Discussion item number 8B, update on the planning and zoning training session, development update, and attainable housing presentation.
Okay, so again, very quickly, I know we've been talking about this P and Z training session. Right now, the focus is still on council's training session, which will occur at the end of July. So once that's completed, we will shift the focus to P and Z, Historic Review Board, all those other boards and commissions. At this time, we're thinking about bringing all the boards together for maybe a lunch meeting, but we will definitely send out additional information about that once we complete the city council training. As far as development update, at last night's council meeting, city staff gave an overall development update to the city council just to let them know what all's going on currently and what's coming down the pike. Wanted to see if y'all would be interested in having that same presentation. I did email y'all the presentation. But I could scale that back, make it a lot quicker, or it could be lengthy.
It was a fantastic update. I was here. It was really useful.
Probably 15 to 20 minutes. It was lengthy just because we touched on a lot of different projects. We could look at it more globally and just touch on some high profile projects. It's up to y'all. But
I think if everybody looks at the PDF that was sent out, it really shows the development patterns, which are Friendship Lane and West Live Oak, pretty much.
I didn't
Yeah.
get electronic.
You did? You can get email?
it's sent out about 3 p.m. probably.
What time?
Around 3. We'll be posting it on the city website as well.
I've got a big gap.
Jordan used to kind of do that again.
Yeah. His was more of a.
Like
His was
a
just
future
numbers.
agenda
This has
item
got-
discussion, or
No, this has got a lot more maps and stuff.
Yeah, I know, but we instead
Yeah.
of global once a year, he did once.
okay.
I lost it.
What might be nice is if you can print up that presentation and just give it, give it to P and Z members. That way they've got them.
Okay, be happy to.
Yeah.
Get rid of a few more trees.
And then also at last night's council meeting, Vince Michelle, the affordable housing coordinator, gave an update. Again, that was a lengthy discussion, but I've talked to Vince. He would be happy to come before y'all. I think we would definitely want to tell him, what the time limitations would be, because he likes to talk about this. I mean, it's all good information, but set some time constraints, maybe 10 to 15 minutes.
I think it'd be good
Again.
for us to meet him to find out what his priorities are, how he's planning.
Okay.
So to see how maybe we can help.
Has everybody read the housing study that was prepared in March? That's another thing I think.
Well, and so that will be posted as well. I think the Vince wanted to have a discussion with the new city council before that was made available to everyone. So the development presentation and the affordable housing presentation should be posted by the end of the week, I would say.
When is that meeting between Mr. Michelle and city council?
That was last
That was
night.
yesterday.
Okay, so that's,
So he's had the meeting. Now we can go ahead and post the affordable housing study, I believe it's called. So I'll talk to Vince, see if he's available for y'all's next meeting. I would like to say that my hope would be that the next agenda is shorter, but it's shaping up to be another lengthy one. So
More projects? So then, are you gonna update the development project?
well, a lot of them were already in there. There are a few that we, I guess we just received formal applications on, so we didn't include them. But you'll probably be seeing them at the next meeting.
are you going to check with the McDonald companies about their,
So
they have,
they are, it's, what is it, a tax credit lottery?
right?
So they went after it last year. They didn't get it. They're
Right, and in the meantime, Granger McDonald died, so there's, I guess, some changes happening maybe in the company. They're building, I guess their big project going on now is the landing in Kerrville on the river. So it would be, I think, helpful if the city had some idea, is it still a go or no-go on the Friendship Lane development, Friendship and
I can
Sunrise
reach out to them.
development?
I'll check.
Because that impacts the roadway back there. I think the Botanica development is supposed to begin, or the timeline they gave me was August.
I would say there's a chance that for sure the site improvements, they can start by then.
Tearing down buildings or moving trash, or not that there's any trash on the property.
On the what? Got a good number of applications that are currently being reviewed. I don't have a timeline to report yet, but that's correct. We're trying. Yes.
I know that the city has posted the application or the brochure, I guess it is, online. So they've gotten a couple applications already. I don't think there's a fixed timeline to close it or anything. My discussions with council several months ago were to, I think, have somebody in around October 1st, replacement, allow some overlap, and then I would leave towards the end of the year. We'll get outside counsel to cover maybe or something. Well, I don't know.
Garrett can be interim.
If he does,
Another interim title here.
if he doesn't go, that means Mark Strayer stays for a while longer.
What was that?
Nothing.
Did we move to adjourn?
Yes, I need a motion to adjourn. Motion by Jim, second by,
motion.
second by who?
I'll second it.
Second by Jeff. Any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Jeff. Did you bring the Mylar? I was gonna ask you, and here, Shelby, do you want this first official request form?
Well, we've got. I'll listen to